everyone, and welcome to today's episode. We're going to be talking about Dead Ahead by Susan J. Bruce. So, this one is a cozy mystery. It's an animal cozy mystery, and it fits within the clean and wholesome romance category. And it's also book one in the Ruthless the Killer series. So, why did I want to read this one? Well, I read an ARC when this book released in 2024, and I also bought the ebook because I loved the story. And I was always planning to add this one to my to reread list, which is quite a long list, but I do like that list because when I'm looking for a comfort read, I can go and find a story I've really enjoyed and go back and reread and enjoy it again. So, anyway, book two in the series, Mostly Dead, is releasing a couple of weeks after this episode drops, which is another reason why I'm talking about Dead Ahead today. Okay, so let's talk about the book. Dead Ahead by Susan J. Bruce is set in a fictional coastal town called Pelican Bay, and we're in Australia with this one. So this is an Aussie cozy mystery. And so Pelican Bay is on the southern coastline in South Australia, so it's kind of southeast of Adelaide. And this one has many cozy mystery tropes. It has animals in it that are absolutely adorable and play an important role in the story. So I do like animal cozy mysteries. It also has rom-com story elements, which are really fun. There's a romance series story arc as well as a mystery series story arc that kicks off in this book, which is a lot of fun as well. We have quirky characters, as you'd expect in a small town cozy mystery, and we have amateur sleuths who are working to solve the mysteries in the book. And one of those mysteries to be solved is a murder, which is a lot of fun. This book is the debut book from Susan J. Bruce, and I was very excited to start reading it, and I can't wait to read the second book when it releases. So here's the first line. It's never easy to make a fresh start with a reputation like mine, especially when you believe your own bad press. So that's quite an opening, and we kick straight into the action in the story from that opening, and we meet Ruth. So she's our main character in the book. She's 30 years old. She's originally from Brisbane, so she's an Aussie, and she spent 10 years living in Europe. So she basically ran away to Europe, and there's some reasons I'll get into a bit later for that. And she's lived quite a nomadic lifestyle and done different types of jobs in different countries and different things, and had some quite interesting life experiences. But now she's back in Australia, heading to South Australia to where her father grew up. Because so as the story opens, we learn that her father passed away a few weeks ago, and sadly she wasn't able to see him. We also learned that her sister's a sociopath and a compulsive liar and created a lot of trouble, which led to Ruth living in Europe for such a long time. And so we now have Ruth returning to the small town in South Australia where her father grew up to take possession of the house that she's inheriting from his estate. And it just so happens that her best friend lives in Pelican Bay and has convinced her that it's a wonderful, lovely, safe place to live, and that Ruth should come over and live there and reset her life there. And the house looks great and everything's fine. But of course, as we know in a story, most of those things aren't true and don't actually happen. So that brings us to Dan. So Dan is one of our side characters who is also Ruth's love interest in this story. So the story has romantic elements, and there is a romance, but it's not like a romance book where we get to a happily ever after in the romance by the end. This is a romance that will actually follow the series, which is a lot of fun. And I really like those romances in cozy mysteries. So he's mid-30s, he's former military, and he's now working in security. So he's a security expert that goes away for work and travels. And he moved to Pelican Bay not long before Ruth did. And so we have a rom-com meet cute in this story in chapter one, and it is embarrassing and hilarious, like they always are, and awkward and ridiculous. And Ruth and Dan are effectively strangers on a plane, and all this stuff happens. And Ruth makes some assumptions about Dan that may or may not be true. And it's all okay because they're strangers and they're never going to meet again, of course. But we know in a romance that's never the case. And of course, they're going to be living in the same town and will reunite and see each other, which makes for some very awkward moments as the story starts. And so there are a lot of problems in this story. Ruth's house is not as picturesque and gorgeous as the photos made it look that her friends sent her. And it's basically a money sink, and there's a lot of work that needs to be done. It's a late 1800s home, so a very old established home that is groaning and needs work. And so Ruth will be looking for some odd jobs to do to try and get the money together to pay for these repairs that she's inherited with the house. We also have a murder mystery, and a dead body effectively turns up on Ruth's property. And because it's on her property, she is obviously listed as one of the suspects. So we have that aspect of the cozy mystery plot that happens. And the mystery was so fun. And I kind of had an idea of who might have been responsible for what was going on, but I didn't understand how and why. And I think that was the fun of the story, was working through the story to discover what actually happened in the murder mystery and who did it and how and why they did it as well. So I really enjoyed the way the cozy mystery played out. We also have a lot of town secrets, and Ruth doesn't know a lot about her father. They were estranged for about the length of time she was in Europe, the 10 years, because of what her sister has done. There's a whole story behind that. So one of the things that Ruth's learning in this story is who her father was, what his life was like when he was growing up, and there's a whole lot of information that she doesn't know. So she meets people that knew her father and grew up with him, which is also very interesting and is kind of connected to what could be happening in the mystery as well. And Ruth's family of origin is very dysfunctional. As you can imagine, if you've got a sociopath for a sister, you are not going to be having a very fun time. And there are reasons as to why Ruth ran away, and that a whole lot of that will come out in the story. I'm not going to say any more because I'm not going to give away any spoilers. And Ruth, if we go back to the first line, she has this undeserved reputation of being the harbinger of death. And she kind of thinks and half believes that she might be jinxed because it feels like death follows her. And I'm not going to say any more because you can read the story and find out exactly what I'm talking about. So when a dead body turns up on the inherited property that her dad owned that was in the family, in Ruth kind of isn't surprised because death does seem to not be too far away from her at different times as well. And that's quite disquieting for her to be dealing with. And so I would describe this cozy mystery as clean and wholesome. It fits within that general market romance cozy mystery category with the rom-com elements. It's a very Aussie story, and if you're an Aussie listening to this episode and you like the strong Australian flavour in your books, then this is definitely one to look at. And it's also a little bit edgy, so I wouldn't describe it as being squeaky clean. So if you don't like anything that's a little bit edgy in your stories, then this might be one to skip. There could be things that might be a little too much if you prefer the really squeaky clean and wholesome stories as well. So there was so much to love about this book. I mean, the cozy mystery, it was so fun, and it did keep me guessing in terms of what was going on and how the plot played out. And the animals, oh my goodness, the grumpy cat. It was so relatable to see this cat in the book who was just adorable and infuriating and frustrating all mixed up in one. And I love the rom-com story elements. They worked really well, and I was laughing out loud at different times in the story as well. And Ruth was a very well developed and complex and complicated character. Her background was difficult. She hadn't had an easy life in many respects. And as the story progresses, we learn more about Ruth and why she is the way she is and why she thinks and does what she does, etc. And we get to know her. And I'm assuming as the series goes through, we'll get to know more about Ruth and her family as we move through the series and the other books. And the quirky Aussie side characters were just delightful. And it was really fun to see the Aussie humour on the page, which is slightly different to humour from the rest of the world. And one thing that was really fun about Ruth is that despite the ridiculousness of what was going on, she was always able to laugh at herself. And that type of humor is very Aussie, and I really enjoyed it. And the series mystery that kicks off in the book, as well as the romance, I love that as well. And so, my favorite book quote from the story is this one: "It seems to me that you're the kind of person who, when she sees a problem, will do something about it. Maybe all the bad experiences made you into that kind of person." So we have a side character. It's not Dan, it's one of the other characters who's having this conversation with Ruth. And it was quite an insightful part of the story because we really start to understand the childhood trauma and the really difficult stuff that Ruth has had to deal with in her life, and the dysfunctional family of origin and how that has impacted her as a person and is impacting her in the present day. And she's also dealing with grief as well from losing her father and not being able to see him before he passed and being estranged, etc., as well. And it had those deeper moments where we got to know the character, as well as those lovely light-hearted rom-com moments as well in the story. So in terms of the impact on me, it was laugh out loud funny. There are times it was really hilarious and ridiculous and silly and all those things that I love in a rom-com, and mixed with the cozy mystery with the amateur sleuths and all the things that go along with that. I just really enjoyed it. And at the same time, as I said, there were those poignant moments where Ruth was reflecting on what's going on and what's happened in her life and the future direction for her life as well, because she's kind of cruised along, living in different places, doing different things, and really hasn't thought about settling down in the future. And so all those issues start to come to the fore in this story as well. And as I said, this is book one in Ruthless the Killer series, and it's a standalone story in terms of the mystery. So the book has a mystery, and that gets solved in the book. But there is a series mystery and an overarching series romance plot as well, with what's going on with Ruth and Dan. So for that reason, I would recommend reading these books in order if possible, and starting with book one. And that way you'll get the full experience of what's going on with the series as well as what's happening with the characters. But of course, it's a standalone book that could be read on its own as well without reading any other books in the series. So, in summary, I would recommend Dead Ahead to readers who like animal cozy mysteries, and particularly when the animals are important to the story and actually play an important role and are kind of like a character, then you'll like this one. If you like your cozy mysteries with rom-com elements, you'll like this one. And particularly if you like that laugh out funny, silly, and ridiculous situations that our main character gets herself into, and how she has that lovely ability to just roll with it and laugh at herself and carry on and move forward and keep plowing through to work out what's going on with this mystery. And you'll like this one if you like having a cozy mystery series that has romance and a mystery that runs through all the books. And if you like your cozy mysteries of small town secrets with the quirky characters and the family connections, you'll like this one. And if you like a cozy mystery that has a very strong Aussie flavour and is set in Australia in a coastal small town on the beach, then you'll love this one as well. Thanks for joining me today. Does Dead Ahead by Susan J. Bruce sound like a book that you'd like to read? Have you read it? What did you think? You can let me know. If you're listening on the podcast, you can send me a text via a link in the show notes. If you're watching at YouTube, you can like the episode, and you can also leave a comment at YouTube. You can also email me via my website where I have a contact form, and that's at narelleatkins.com. And if you've enjoyed this episode, please subscribe, and subscribe at your favorite podcasting app or at YouTube. And then you'll get a notification when my next episode drops. And also, if you enjoyed this episode, please share the link with a friend, especially a friend who likes reading cozy mysteries and you think would enjoy reading Dead Ahead and the books in the Ruthless the Killer series. Thanks for tuning in, and see you next time.